All right, welcome, good evening, and we're glad you're joining us tonight. I'm here live. Pastor Ford is back. Last week I was running this solo, but tonight we are back to our normal setup, and Pastor Ford will be taking and answering questions as we always do. Encourage you to ask questions tonight, talking about something very practical and very relevant to everybody: stress, life, and stressors. Honestly, there have been a few things that kind of led me to want to do a podcast on this, but it was some stuff that Elliot had shot out about, dealing with, asking if burnout is a real thing and stuff like that. So it got me just kind of, my mind is spinning on this and thinking about it. And then I heard this guy, I've been kind of getting into something called hybrid athletics, which is a blend of like bodybuilding or strength training type working out mixed with endurance athletics. So like running marathons, triathlons, and stuff like that. So it's like the blend of building muscle and strength and then having like this endurance athlete type of training along with it. And so the reason why that went this direction is because this guy was talking about like how he does this, and so I was trying to figure out like how do these guys do this, because anybody that has ever done bodybuilding, usually you develop the point of view about endurance athletics that it takes away your muscular gains, right? It turns you into a skinny person. That's kind of the idea, or extremely toned and shredded, but not really muscular, right? From the perspective of bodybuilder looking, so if you want to be big, you don't run, right? That's a thing. And there's a lot of people who say, oh, no, I don't do cardio, that'll take away my gains. But these guys have apparently taken it to another level, and they're doing it. And so he said, when I wake up in the morning, and he does these like 10-mile runs every morning. This is like what he does for a business. He's a CEO. He has like a whole supplement company now, and he's ex-military.
Oh, right. Okay, there you go.
He's a professional athlete, and so he's pushing all these things.
So this is his life.
Yes, this is who he is, right, all the time. So clearly there's some other logistics there involved. But he said, when I wake up in the morning, I don't say, man, I'm really excited about running this 10-mile run.
Yeah.
He said, I have so many other stressors in life that I could focus on, but I do this out of the discipline, which is one of the reasons why he does it so early in the morning. It's like 4:30 in the morning, he goes out and runs this 10 miles, whatever. And he's got like a sub 3-hour marathon. And so he's like really into this. It's a really serious thing, which is really high class for anybody that's into and doesn't know about running marathons. That's a big deal. 25 miles in 3 hours is pretty legit. But anyway, it got me thinking again. So how does somebody push past, the stresses in life? How do they deal with stress? And so just started thinking about it. How do people normally deal with stress? And I found some kind of humorous ones, and I remembered some humorous ones that I've heard about. But one of the ways, a few of the ways people deal with stress: talking to inanimate objects, right? Stress baking. I've heard of that. I've actually seen that before. Stress eating, and it's almost always junk food. Aggressively stress cleaning. I've actually done that myself. I get stressed out and just start cleaning. I don't know. That's a weird thing, but binge show watching. Everybody's heard of that. Talking to themselves. I've heard one man say it's okay to talk to yourself until you start talking back. Stress shopping or spending, and binging on social media, which is more of a recent development in our human nature. But I was thinking about, these are a bit more humorous. Now you obviously have people who work out, their diets, all that's their stress relievers. Yoga is a big deal these days, and it's become kind of a fad. And I realize these obviously aren't how everybody deals with stress. But again, it just led me to the question: what is the right way to deal with stress? How do you handle stress? How do you push through stress? How do you stay focused when life gets stressful, and when life, sometimes you feel overwhelmed by things? And really, it led me to this ultimate question, which is the foundation for the whole podcast. Is there an advantage to being, when it comes to stress and life and problems, as a Christian versus a non-Christian? When we're talking about, genuine follower of Jesus Christ, who somebody's surrendered their lives, they're genuinely converted, they're genuinely saved, and versus people who aren't at all. And so what is the difference there? Scripture that came to mind, Jesus says, my Father's entrusted everything to me. No one truly knows the Son except the Father. No one truly knows the Father except the Son and those whom the Son chooses to reveal him. Then Jesus said, come to me, all you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy to bear, and my burden is that I give you is light. So a few issues: revelation, invitation, and then rest to those who carry heavy burdens, but also the taking on of a different yoke or a different burden. So right off the bat, what is the difference between stress in life with Christians and non-Christians?
Yeah, I think it would be important to make that dividing line. Those who are truly Christians and then everyone else, I think, is a better way of describing it, rather than saying totally not.
We always have to do that, don't we?
Well, the
Nowadays,
reason,
yes.
the reason being is because lukewarm Christians, religious Christians, do not benefit from their Christianity in this life at all, because there's no relationship with God. And so, because the reason why I say that is because the key factor that gives the believer an advantage when it comes to dealing with stress in this life is the confidence of knowing that you are going in the right direction. And so that's the thing, is that even if you are a very disciplined, very determined individual, you talk a lot about Jocko Willink and people like that, that these are people that are, their job in life is to help other people to become successful, and so, but even people like that, motivational speakers and the like, they are still, they don't have that certainty of purpose, because many, if they have a religious leanings, they don't know what's going to happen to them when they die. The non-Christian ones I'm referring to, they don't know what the future holds, and they don't have a confidence that they're being guided, by God, and so they're having to deal with those losses or those lacks. And so for the Christian, though, there's a distinct advantage, because even if you aren't, your game isn't, you're not at the top of your game, you still have a confidence that you're being led by the Creator of the universe in the path that you're going to find, like Jesus said, finding rest. That's a big deal in Scripture. It's mentioned several times about the idea of rest and entering into rest. That this is the idea that sin. The Bible says that the how does the Scripture go exactly? I can't remember, but it's the idea is that it talks about, He gives His beloved sleep, but it also talks about that the life of the non-believer, is difficult. They can't find rest. There is no rest. We said there's no rest for the wicked. That's a saying. But there's a biblical parallel to that, and that idea. And so, because when you think about all these things you're just talking about, of how people deal with stress, is the idea is often to get your mind off of it and to relax. So going out, it doesn't matter what it is, if it's eating or shopping, you might look at these things and they're completely different types of events. But if the event can get your mind off of your stress, then it's a de-stressor. And so it doesn't matter what it is. But again, the idea of being free from stress, can only come when you are confident that you are going in the right direction in life. I mean, you have to have that. Not this is a good way, not this is a successful way, this is a profitable way, but the right way. And that's something that you can only have in God, because that's the only way you can know that you're going the right way, because there is only one right way. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And so there's only one way, when it comes right down to it, and that is Jesus. And that, I know, goes against the grain of many religious beliefs. But the proof is in the pudding, is that as a religious person, you could be a Buddhist, you could be a, you can be up on a mountain somewhere, some guru that, but the reality is you don't have that inner confidence, because how can you? Because you don't have a relationship with the God that created the universe. You may have a belief in the existence of a God. You may have a belief in transcendence. But those are head things. They're not life things. It's not what you carry with you. When I get up in the morning, every morning, regardless of what life is like, with a confidence that whatever happens that day, God is with me, and I can make it through whatever happens, because God is with me. And as time goes on, the life of a Christian doesn't get easier; it gets harder, because the road is narrow, and the definition of narrow becomes more and more narrow the longer you're alive as a follower of Jesus. And you begin to realize that narrow isn't just not doing the physical sins that everybody is familiar with, but it's the sins of the mind and the heart that you're constantly having to narrow your existence. The closer you get to the end of your life, the more narrow it becomes. And so life and the stress of life become more difficult because of that. And so you have to that's the distinctive, I think, between the Christian and everyone else, is that distinctive of having that confidence. And so hopefully there won't be a question of what if you're a Christian and you don't have that confidence, because you've just answered your question. Is that I would be looking into my Christianity a little bit deeper. Because there's more Christianity available, than what you've experienced.
So let's dig into that a little bit, because the thing that Jesus says here, "Come to me," right?
Yeah.
I mean, if we just
Notice it doesn't say "I will come to you." That's which is another one of those Christian ideas that's just a total lie. Oh no, Jesus will come and get you, and everything will be fine.
So what does that really what does that really mean, especially in light of finding rest? Is that just okay? As long as I go to church once a week, I will get my reprieve. I can, the Catholics do it. You have your confessional. I can go and feel good about, okay, all right, I've confessed. My sins are washed now. I can go off and...
Yes, Father, forgive me for I've sinned again, the same way.
But clearly people do that with, in many forms of religion.
Yeah.
Right? So what's the right way? What does it really look like
to come
to Jesus?
Yeah, that's the thing, is having that confidence that you know Jesus. And that is... You have to get past all the mental gymnastics that we go through and contortions that we go through to convince ourselves against our clear understanding that we have a relationship with Jesus when we don't. It really does come down that if you're, because it's simple. Being a Christian is very simple. You do everything Jesus said. And if you're not doing everything Jesus said, then you're going to make it difficult.
What are some things you think get in the way of that? But more like, some things that get in the way of when we think, this is I talked a little bit about, family the other day, and thinking about the idea of like the importance of family.
Well,
right. And so there are things like, you got my family. You've got to tend to my family.
Yeah.
Jesus obviously understands that, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is just, yes, he does understand it, but you don't. And that's the problem. That's the problem. You don't understand it. Jesus absolutely understands, but you don't understand, and you're doing it all wrong. And so that's...
I see. Now you're talking about a right way and a wrong way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that there's the Bible says there's a way that seems right to a man, but the end thereof is death. So you think you're going the right direction when you're actually walking off a cliff, and you feel good about it. And the only time you feel bad about it is when you're in a free fall, and then it's too late. You just have to suffer the consequences and hope that this one doesn't kill you. And that's where most people live their lives, is they live their lives walking blindly and then falling off cliffs. And how much damage happens when they fall off the cliff is really the only factor. And there can be this sort of gratefulness, that at least this one didn't kill me. What was that? What was that you were talking about? The movie you did? No, actually was a sticker that my son-in-law had on his computer, and you had mentioned it in a sermon, and you had mentioned about a movie or something having to do with it as well. But did you die?
Oh yeah, did you die though?
Did you die though? And so that yeah, but did you die though? It's like, yeah, no, I have reason to be grateful because I didn't die though. and
I'm still alive. I woke up another day.
But that's a poor concession for what's available to us, is that we don't have to wake up every day saying, well, I've lived another day. We can wake up knowing that there's a direction that we can go in, and that even if we do die during that day, that we died in the will of God, doing the right thing. And that is but if you don't know what that is, and that it's not that hard to know the right way. It's not that hard. We just don't want to live the right way. And I kind of got sidetracked on this, but I was thinking about, that there are people that they claim to be Christians, but there are things in life that, they can't find rest. Some people are, they're Christians, and they're deathly afraid of germs, and it's like, how can you be a Christian and have a preoccupation with germs? Don't touch me, or don't do this, or you've had this, or you've done that, or or kids, don't be around my kids if you're this or that or the other thing. And so you have all these, and it's like, so germs are more powerful than the God that you claim to know. Because so if you're around somebody, you catch a germ and you die from that germ, did God make a mistake? Was there somewhere along the way where God did something wrong or blew it somewhere along the way? And now you're dead. And had you not been around that person, you wouldn't have died, and life would have, gone on for you. And it's these. But yet there are people that, and they won't do certain things. I mean, they literally won't go certain places. They won't do certain things. They won't eat certain things. And the reason is because they're afraid they're going to die from it, or they're going to get sick from it, and they're going to be, in pain. But and I've been like this. I've been a Christian for 40 years. Is that when there are things in life that I can't do because of some concern about being sick, well, my response is completely the opposite. It's to actually go do that thing and pray that God would give me victory over that thing. And I'm not talking about being death defying. I'm not talking about something like that. But if I'm gonna go pray, do a healing crusade and pray for the sick, I'm going to be exposed to their diseases. And if I die from their diseases while I'm praying for them, well, that's the way it's supposed to be. But what about your family? What about this? What about that? What about the other thing? What about the other thing? God knows. God knows. I'm not that important. My family will get on without me. My ministry will get on without me. My whatever will either go on without me or disappear, and nobody will care. We're not that important. But this idea of self-preservation is what's behind all that. Is that it's I'm going to be preaching about that this idea tomorrow, is that Jesus said, if you love your life, you're going to lose it. you know. And I see people losing their lives. I see that they're losing the joy of the joy of life, because there are things in their life that they just won't do for fear of the repercussions that will come from doing those things, because they really don't trust God. They know what God can do, but they also know that God may let things happen to them, and so they don't really trust God. So they are, they're overly careful. Which another word for overly careful is stress.
Yes. So, I mean, clearly there's, we're talking about, and you mentioned this, the idea of having a direction to go. And I'm actually going to mention this a little bit more again in a little bit, but clearly the issue here is the direction God wants you to go. And Jesus made it super clear, right? Matthew 7, not everyone who says, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but him who does the will of my Father in heaven. And then who is my mother, brother, sisters. So now we're talking about very deep relationship.
Yeah.
Those who do the will of my Father
Yeah.
are. So now we know what it looks like to have a relationship with Jesus. You're doing God's will. So
Yeah.
how do you, how do you get there? How does somebody, how do you establish? Because we
Yeah.
actually talked a little bit before the podcast.
I think if there's one thing that Jesus showed us, is that doing the will of God will get you killed.
Yeah.
Okay? And so you have to decide, if that's what you want or not. And if you don't want to get killed, then you can't do the will of God. If you're more concerned about self-preservation, then you're not going to be able to do the will of God. It's not possible. Because
what does that
the
look
will
like
of God
in,
will get you killed.
We're in a first world country. What does that look like?
What does it look like
we
to
don't
do
exactly
the will of
go out
God?
and live for God at the risk of our lives every day. You know what I mean? This isn't.
Yeah. Well, you
not
live in
as
the
much
you
as-
live in the Bay Area, and we live in America, first of all, and then we live in the Bay Area, and so you live in the Bay Area. Money is the god of the Bay Area, and so therefore, if you are not worshiping the god of money, then you're going to be second class, at best, in the Bay Area and in the United States in general, but more specifically in the Bay Area, or especially, I should say, because things are so expensive. So it means you're not going to have as much. You're going to have to live without things, because you're not going to be able to be, have an endless supply of cash and also do the will of God. There's not enough time to do both. That's why Jesus said you will either serve God or money. You can't serve both. There's not enough time, and you don't have enough resources to be able to serve both. You have to choose which one you're going to serve. And so when you genuinely want to serve God, that's what's going to happen is you're going to have to you'll get bypassed for promotions. You won't be getting golden parachutes and things like that. You're just not going to go there unless you compromise your Christianity. That's the only way you're going to go there. But if you compromise your Christianity, you are not doing the will of God. And so therefore you're compromising your eternity. You can't have both. You can't say, okay, I really want to focus on eternity, but I'm also going to spend a lot of time in this life, becoming successful in a worldly way.
So we get a question from the listeners here. Do you think people without Jesus can live in any kind of peace?
Well, the idea of peace isn't binary. You can have a measure of contentment, by just applying godly principles. You don't have to be a Christian to experience the fruit of godly principles. And the funny thing is that you start looking at people who have really become experts in certain fields of success, in general success. It's amazing how many lessons they pull from the Bible,
Yeah.
as part of their formula for success. Wealthy people talking about tithing, for example, who are not even Christians, and talk about that there's a principle in tithing, that works, and and they're not even Christians. And then you have others that are, as well, not Christians, but they're able to draw from the wisdom of the Bible and to have some measure of success. But so the peace is relative, though, and so that's what I mean is that you look almost across the board. If you are a successful person in the public, you probably are divorced, more than likely, if not many times,
Yeah.
because they go in two different directions. You can't be a success focused on success and be able to, because you can't bring your family into success, because success is family becomes baggage to success when success is about you achieving.
Yeah.
And so that's where the problem lies, is you have these men who have become successful, and if you look at their wives are not their partners in that success. Their wives are somewhere else. Regardless of whether their wives are high powered or not, doesn't matter. You just don't look at them and think, man, they are so successful, and look at how family oriented they are. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
The two don't go hand in hand. So that's only one particular measure. But as you extrapolate that out over all kinds of different areas of life, there's too many conflicting parts to the idea of success, that you can have your cake and eat it too. For the most part, is that you can. Yes, look at me, I'm a Christian and I'm a multi-billionaire, and I have all these, things going on in the world, and I have a great family, and I have great kids, and I work, 18 hours a day, and you're just not going to find that. You're just not going to find that kind of person. It just doesn't exist. Because it's not, nobody has that kind of energy and resources to be able to do that.
So do you think that outside of, well, okay, let me ask it like this. Is there, in being a Christian, do you think that you pay more attention to the type of load you're trying to carry? Or is this something that just, is it a natural outflow of
Yes,
being a
but not
Christian, or?
just from the standpoint of the weight of the load, the type of load. Yes, exactly, the type of load. What is it that you are carrying is a very, very, very different. So like for me, as a pastor, I'm thinking of things like, I want to, the load that I'm carrying is that I'm 62 years old, and I want to be able to be around to help other people for a while. And so that's going to mean that I'm going to have to discipline myself in things that I could indulge in and not care about, but I'm not. It will affect my calling. My purpose in life will be affected by doing those things, and so I can't do them as often as I would like to. Everything has to be done in within the boundaries of purpose. And so that's purpose is more than success. See, success and purpose are not necessarily the same things. Well, let me say it this way: purpose, real, genuine purpose, and worldly success are not necessarily the same things. And more often they aren't the same things, because you have to go down to go up to be successful in God. Because the greatest among you will be the servant of all. And so you things that you could do that would make life a lot easier, you can't necessarily do. Because it will have a negative effect on other people. Like, for example, if I was to, not that I'm in the financial situation to do so, but, living here in the Bay Area, I decide I'm going to buy a, $5 million house and have servants, that cook for me, people that work for me, that cook for me, and somebody who does this and does that and does the other thing and does the other thing, and then so I'm being, meanwhile I'm working on, keeping the cash cow happy, so that I'll be able to afford all those things. That nobody's gonna come to me for advice
Yeah.
on life, because it's like I don't have a clue what life's like, because I'm being pampered, and all's I'm focusing on is keeping the machine running. I don't know anything about how other people deal with things if I'm just if I'm just keeping the machine running. And the truth is that's what most successful people are, is they're just keeping the machine running. You
Yeah.
see these, if you've watched any of the videos with the, Mr. Beast, it's the here's a guy who's very ambitious, but the compromises that he's had to make along the way, in his life, his Christianity, because he used to be a claimed Christian, and
Really?
that's all by the it's all by the wayside now.
I
And
didn't actually know that about Mr. Reeves.
yeah, and well, you can't function at that level, of I'm going to be, the top YouTuber, and and I'm going to do this and that and the other thing, and and then to because he's serving money, that's he's a nice guy, but he's serving money, and he's serving money so that he can give money away to people, and he likes doing that kind of a thing. He likes that kind of philanthropy, but it's costing him his purpose in
Yeah.
order to do that. And so somebody like that, I have nothing whatsoever against somebody who's doing all those things. It's just that being the best that you can be in this life doesn't even help, to be the best that you're going to be in the next life. And that's what I'm talking about, is you have to choose.
Yeah.
You can't go down a path that's going to make you wildly successful in this life and also be able to go down the path that you're going to be wildly successful eternally as well. You have to choose.
So thinking about this issue of discipline, it's interesting because you'd mentioned the idea of having knowing you're headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
And so how do you well, let me ask this first actually. Do you ever feel, after what, almost 40 years of salvation, how long have you been saved?
Yeah, 40,
So-
over 40 now.
So I mean, now we'll talk maybe just about the last 10 or 15 years. Do you have times of being overwhelmed? Do you feel overwhelmed? Do you go through seasons of feeling okay, there's too much to handle here?
No, not really. I say that, and I'm really hesitant to say it like that because I'm searching the corners of my mind and trying to find it. But it's, the Apostle Paul said, I've learned how to be content in all things. He says, I know how to be abased and I know how to abound. He talks about being able to be a full spectrum person. And that's what happens. That's what happens in life is that, and who the people that have come up with these sayings obviously have experienced something to come up with these sayings.
Yeah.
When you're on the top of the world, be careful because it's round. And tomorrow the world may roll right over the top of you. But it's just the reality of being at a place and having some measure of success, and then all of a sudden something. And I remember our leadership pastor often saying, when things are going well, look over your shoulder. You don't want to be caught off guard because something's coming.
Yeah.
Because you can't stay there. You can't sustain unlimited success. It's just not possible because it's up and down, and so in life is up and down. And there are times, I can honestly say that there are times where I said, this is a lot, and I've had times, but I'm only talking about periods of weeks, at the most.
Mhm.
That's why I say no, because it's never been anything that's been long term that I've gone through something. I've had these real struggles for like months. Because anytime I hit, this is what I've learned, from being a Christian and following Jesus, is what I've learned is that there's a, you know, trials are, trials come, and trials are the tool that shape us into the people that we want to be. And so you can't have the one without the other. You can't be the person that you want to be without trials. And if you are trying to avoid trials, then you can't be the person that you want to be. And so the phrase is divine tensions. Those two sort of bookends of life are there, and they're both necessary. And so when you wake up one day and it's trials, and then you wake up a few weeks later and it's the person you want to be, you have to learn how to take both. You have to be able to see both from the same perspective. It's harder to the trial side of it is harder because that's where the work is. The fruit is what you become, but the work is the trial. But trials are not necessarily they're not things that you just have to overcome. Trials are, I would call trials like, if you think about it from the standpoint of going to Home Depot, and you've decided, I'm going to learn how to use every single tool that Home Depot sells. Because tools are specific to a trade. You have, if you're a you do drywall, you hang drywall, you have a whole different skill set from a carpenter, or electrician, and so you don't go into Home Depot and you go into the electrical department if you're doing drywall, and so if I just decided I'm going to learn how to use every one of these tools, and now you have an idea of what it means to be a Christian.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens, is you have to learn how to use every tool that comes your way, and tools come through trials. And so you learn things through trials. You learn things, you understand how things work through trials, and that's been for me one of the most difficult things in being a pastor, is having to deal with the fact that you can't help everyone. As much as you would like to, you can't help everyone, because there's no tool for helping in certain things. And I've discovered that over the years, is there's just no tool that you can use to help certain people in certain situations. But having said that, there are a lot of tools that when you learn how to use them, you can help a lot of people. You can't help everyone, but you can help a lot of people. And in the beginning, you really can't help anybody because you don't know how to use those tools. But as you go along, and that's true as a Christian, because Christianity, it's funny, I think about this a lot. The idea of pastoring is really just, today, okay, let's just say, today, pastoring today is being a Christian, a real one, and everybody should be what we would call a pastor today. Because a pastor today is not a pastor like in the first century. It's a very, very different thing. Pastor today, you go to bed at a certain time, you get up at a certain time, and you have a work week, and every now and then somebody might disturb your vacation,
Yeah.
or something like that with a question, but it's not terribly demanding, unless you try to fix everyone, then you're gonna have a rough life. But if you're, like I said, we're not under persecution. We're not having to deal with government that's trying to kill us and things like that. Like in the first century, is a whole different, whole different dimension there, but But yeah, so just being a Christian, learning trials make you what you want to become,
Yeah.
and dealing with that, and trials, this is the other part, is that you will only get through trials successfully dependent on your relationship with Jesus, the Holy Spirit, um, and you're able to engage, to learn, to go to school, to go to the Holy Spirit school, of wisdom,
Yeah.
during a trial. If early on in my Christianity, trials would knock me down. I would go through a trial, and it would flatten me, and I would get back up and move forward. But over time, as I began to develop from those times of being flattened, that I began to learn, and now the trials don't flatten me anywhere near as often as they used to. I'm talking about, that, once every many years,
Yeah.
I might get nailed with something that will just flatten me, and I'll think, oh, I never saw this coming. I never expected this. It wasn't even in my theology, but because I have a history of being able to work those things through, those trials through, they don't become stressors, because it's like, okay, I got to work through this. It's time to do the work. And that's the thing, is that when it comes right down to it, you have a certain amount of strength, you have a certain amount of time, and if you learn how to use those, like today, this is a kind of a side example, but today I worked out. I normally work out around noon, because I'm get my early morning work stuff done, and then by 11, 12 o'clock I'm kind of, I've tackled most of the difficult things I need to tackle with, and now it's time to start dealing with the things that I don't really want to deal with. But that's the time usually when I stop, and then I work out. Well, today I decided, because I'm always tired later on in the day, and so I thought, you know what, I'm going to save my working out for when I'm the most tired. and and you think, oh, that's a dumb idea, because you're not going to work out as much. But I thought, no, let me see, because I can't figure out a way to not be tired. I don't know what it is about 4 o'clock. There's something that happens at 4 o'clock. It probably has something to do with getting up at 5:30, but the 4 o'clock is like, okay, it's over, sort of thing. And so today it was about 3:30. I decided, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to work out. And I didn't want to work out. There was nothing inside of me that had any desire whatsoever. But to my amazement, within 15 minutes, if that even 10 minutes of being out there, I was working out at the capacity that I normally do when I'm at my best.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, I finished around 5 o'clock, and then I was like back to where I usually am at 1 or 2 o'clock, and so I kind of skipped that tired time, because usually during that time I'm literally sitting at my computer falling asleep, and I'm thinking about going and doing something else so that I can recover. So I thought, well, this works, because now I don't have to have an extra waste of time. I can compress that, and so I'm going to start working out at 4 o'clock regularly, or around that time zone, regularly, so that I can, so when I'm dying, I'll just leave it out there in the garage. So, but my point being in that is, you don't. I wouldn't have known that had I not tried it, and that's my point. Is the idea is, when you're in trials, trials are that. They put you in positions of things you don't think you can handle.
Yeah.
But if you don't think about it from the standpoint of that, I can't handle this. If you think of it from the standpoint of, okay, let me see what I'm made of, you'll find that you're made of a lot more than you really understand.
So let's kind of talk about this issue of being like overwhelmed. And the reason why is because I've talked to many people, even especially recently, who, it seems like in moments of dealing with problems, or seasons of there being like a lot of problems, there is a human tendency to get overwhelmed. And we see, scriptures mention that idea. I was thinking the scripture that came to mind was in Psalm 61 when he says, "From the end of the earth I will cry to you when my heart is overwhelmed. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I." And so there's this idea that
Yeah, now think about all that.
get on top of
Yeah,
you.
but
Right?
think about all that.
Hold on, because you're going to answer the question before I've even asked it. But because what is the difference between people who let problems get on top of them and then people who can say, okay, I know where to go when I have situations like this where it's trying to get on top of me and I know what to do here?
Well, that particular verse is actually saying that problems have gotten on top of him.
Mm-hmm.
But he's asking for a path to get on top of the problems.
Right.
And that is, at the end of the day, what you need to do. Because you don't know what, first of all, you don't know what you are capable of within yourself. Secondly, you don't know what you are capable of when God is leading you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll stack those on top of each other, because there's the first of all of what you can do on your own, but then there is on top of that what you can do when God is leading you. Mm-hmm. And so when that becomes your attitude of life, your posture of life is that you don't know, like I said, I know it's a small example, but going out at 4:00 when I'm tired and I want to sleep to go work out is the absolute worst time to do that. But it turned out to be no less profitable than a regular time. Because once my heart rate got up...
You did something here first, though, right?
Well...
You convinced yourself to go out. This is what
I
I'm
didn't
talking
convince myself. I just did it. See, this is the thing. Yeah, this is the thing that is, what I'm talking about, is the idea of when you settle the issue that you don't know what you're capable of, you're not fighting with yourself over whether or not you can do something. You just go do it. You're not fighting. You go do it and see what happens. You don't say, "Oh, I'm not going to do that because it's not going to work. I'm not going to be able to do it." No, I'm going to go do it. And if I do a terrible job at it, now I know, but if I don't do it, I'm not going to know at all.
But that's what I'm talking about, is that some people don't do it. Yeah, so like, so
but
for
that's
instance,
the point. That's just lazy. That's just being lazy.
That's my point, though.
Yeah, that's just being lazy.
Okay, so that
because
leads,
it's like, oh, I don't want to hurt. I don't want to suffer. I don't want to have to experience the fact that I'm not as great as I think I am. There's so many so many lazy factors that are involved in all that.
So this issue of discipline is actually where, because going back to my original, the inspiration from this guy, here's a guy who has become very disciplined. And through, he's become this guy who can discipline himself and do that. Paul says, I discipline my body like an athlete, training it to do what I should.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I fear that after preaching to others, I myself might be disqualified.
Yeah.
He's talking about,
But see, that's the thing is that he understands the reality. And this is the thing is that there are people who are willing to quit and be disqualified. They don't care that they're disqualified.
Why do you think that is? What's underlying in a person that would make them not care about being disqualified?
That's a hard question. Yeah, that's a hard question to answer of why somebody doesn't care when they're disqualified. But my personal feeling is that it is because quitting doesn't require you to face who you really are. Because you can quit and throw excuses at it. You can just say, "Oh, I'm not." Like Paul, I discipline my body because I don't want to be disqualified. Well, versus the person who goes, "Well, the reason why I'm disqualified is fill in the blank with something beyond their responsibility."
Yeah.
And so, but Paul doesn't see it that way, and that's the difference. Is that Paul doesn't see it being beyond his responsibility, and so, but that's what I mean by being lazy. Is that we don't. No. It's not my responsibility. It's not my responsibility. I don't need to be successful in this arena.
So you can actually apply that to more than just
everything.
Being lazy, because you could. And basically, it just means you're using something else as an excuse not.
Well,
to do
but that's
something.
lazy. That's what lazy is. But it applies to everything. Is that people who use excuses are lazy. It's as simple as that. I've stopped using excuses. I don't use excuses anymore for anything. If I am explaining something, I say, "I am sorry this happened." and this is what led up to that happening. But it's still my fault. At the end of the day, it's still my fault. Like I was 15 minutes. Well, yeah, I think it was 10 or 15 minutes late last night. I called Elliot. I was going to meet here at 7. It was 6:35, and I said, I'm gonna leave now. I'm gonna go over, and I had to take a Amazon package to Whole Foods, and then I was gonna stop at In-N-Out and get some food, and I said, and I'll see you right after that. But our plan was 7 o'clock, and so I went to Whole Foods, knocked that out in seconds. I was literally back in my car within a minute, and then went to In-N-Out, and I'm thinking it's Monday, no big deal. There's not going to be anybody at In-N-Out. Well, line all the way around the building, and I thought, oh, well, I'll just go inside because I looked in, there was hardly anybody inside, so I found a place to parked, and went inside, and I went inside, and it was literally 20 minutes waiting for my food, and so I was like. It's like, there's nothing I can do about this. But the truth of the matter is, I knew when I left my house at 6:35, I knew I was cutting it close. And even being able to cut off almost all of stopping at Whole Foods, I knew it was too late. I should have left 10, 15 minutes earlier. I knew that. I should have left at a quarter after. I knew that. And so that's my fault. It's not because In-N-Out was busy. Because In-N-Out is... It's going to be busy or it's not going to be busy. It's not. There's no idea. There's no. Oh well, I always go in there and I get my food in 5 minutes. It's busy sometimes and sometimes it's not. And it's hit and miss.
Yeah.
But stop with the excuses. And because we're talking about stress and all this and how to handle stress and stuff like that. And the truth is that being lazy makes you more stressful.
Yeah.
When you use excuses all the time, when you quit, because life doesn't go, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you quit. I'm not going to come and beat you to death. It doesn't matter. It doesn't care. It's like, it's like being attacked by a lion. You can just play dead all you want, and the lion's just going to eat you for dinner. It's not gonna, oh, they gave up, oh, it's no fun anymore. And life is like that. That's why the Bible talks about the devil being like a roaring lion. He's relentless. He's not gonna give you a break just because you quit. He's not gonna go, oh, they're a quitter, I'm not gonna waste time on them. It's like, oh, they're a quitter, I might as well kill them. I might as well get this over with.
So what are some trying to ask this in such a way, because you can apply this to, you don't have to be a Christian, obviously, for this to be,
well, hopefully the understanding, and we've talked about this enough, is that Christianity is just part of the existence of our part of our existence that some people are unfamiliar with. It's not like there's there's a Christian and then there's a non-Christian and they have two separate lives. A non-Christian is just a handicapped human. So because they aren't able to take advantage of the benefits of being a Christian.
So
religious people.
What are some practical things that Christians do to handle stress? What is the because you're talking a lot about the way you think about it. And stuff
well,
like
that we're kind of summarizing everything that we just talked about. Because that's the idea.
What are some habits you keep? That put you in a position to be able to handle seasons of stress and stuff like that. Where they don't get on top
so you have to. So there's a lot of mentality associated with it. Is that life happens, and that's that has to be part of your philosophy. Life happens. Sometimes you get whacked. Life just comes by and deals you a blow, and so but you're in a fight, and so you can't just curl up in a ball and die. You have to, it's like these, it's funny, these action movies, they're like you see these fight scenes. I doubt that's humanly possible to fight like that. You know, I mean, these guys are clubbing each other, beating each other with iron pipes and stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that, and going,
Getting back up
go, you know,
afterwards.
get It's like, no, your head would be turned around backwards. You know, you're like not going to just go, a little bit of blood there.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like but there is a reality in that. You know, that the human body can take a lot.
Yeah.
You know, a lot and still survive. You know, you've seen people in car accidents where, you know, they literally have to be sewn back together and their pieces are everywhere, and they are, you know, and they are, you know, and they're, yeah, I was in a terrible car accident when I was younger and I survived, and I have, you know, if you look over here, you know, you can see a little scar back here, but their whole face has been, you know, sewn back. It's like a puzzle. But you know, my point in that is we can take a lot, and so when you get whacked, when life beats you like that, we need to have that action hero mentality. I'm not finished. You know, there's got to be something that I can pick up, something that I can grab, something that I can use that will, you know, so I can continue to move forward, not just get knocked on your butt and then get back up again, but being able to move forward in the middle of all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, as a Christian, God's the only one who can show you, you know, always in these, you know, it's funny. The reason I was thinking about it is because I've been thinking about that I was thinking about that idea today of just how much the human body can actually take, and you know, but in life, you know, how all of a sudden things just show up out of nowhere that you can use, you know, like they do in action movies.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, there, the perfect pipe just happens to be hanging out of the wall right there, right
Yes.
now, and so you know, but and that's what finishes off the battle, you know, is that inanimate object that isn't normally there, that just happened to be there
Yeah.
for that particular moment, you know, and life is like that as a Christian, is that all of a sudden God shows you a weapon that you didn't see. You didn't see that it was there, but it's a weapon. And a lot of it is thinking, you know, a way of thinking. And that once you discover, you grab onto that way of thinking, all of a sudden, you know, now you're throwing blows. You know, and you've turned it around. So life or the devil or trials or whatever it may be is attacking, you know, and pummeling you. All of a sudden you realize there's a weapon here I didn't know that I had and that I can use, you know, and like I said, a lot of it is your thoughts of being able to think about things properly, and then it allows you to start throwing blows. I can give a little example of this. Is when I was in Liverpool, and we got our name in the newspaper, and it was a hit piece that was done on our church specifically by a woman who was, I'm not sure her reasoning behind doing this exactly, but she went after us, and you know, and it was all over the papers, and you know, calling me a cult leader and stuff like that when I was in England, and I'm American, and so I'm already, you know, in a kind of a position. And so that article comes out, I'm feeling like, you know, I'm overwhelmed. I'm literally feeling overwhelmed. I called Pastor Warner, asked him, my pastor, what I should do, and you know, his response was to go to the newspaper, get them to make a retraction because it wasn't true. So I went to a lawyer. And I talked to the lawyer, and the lawyer was like, "You've got a case here, not only of just getting a retraction, but you could probably do some damage to this if this is all true what you're saying right now." I said, "Yeah, it's absolutely true." And then I walked out of there, and I thought, I don't really want to go this route because attacking the newspaper, that's not the issue. I don't care about the damage the newspaper done is already done. You know, that's attacking the newspaper isn't going to undo that. You know, how do I fix this reputation issue? And then I get a phone call, you know, within probably a day of that somebody had had a place for mail that could go through. They call a letterbox in England. It's a little flap, and you can stuff mail in there. And so somebody had opened it, and through a book of matches in there, lit the book of matches, and then threw it in, caught the carpet on fire, and then it just went all through the building, the smoke damage and everything, and I'm walking up to the building, and the fire department's there, and they're spraying, they're spraying through the front door of the church. It's just like nothing is going to survive that. The smoke damage alone.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, fine, but they've got a hose in the front door. Just it's like, nah, this building's gutted. There's going to be nothing left but a building. There's going to be bricks, and that's it. And so fortunately that wasn't the case, because all of it was in the front of the building. They had responded close enough that our equipment and stuff was still okay, and the fire hadn't got all the way through the building, but there was, like I said, a lot of smoke damage and everything. But at that moment, and the only way I can describe it is this is a moment that needs to happen regularly, is that I realized this is not people, doing things. This is the devil, and it was very clear at that moment. This is the devil. And he did this to make me want to leave. This is not about destroying my ministry. This is about getting me to leave. And when I recognized that, when I understood that was the goal was to get me to leave. A building can be replaced. Reputations can be fixed. These kinds of things can be dealt with. They're not that big of a deal. But leaving would be the end, and that was the aim. And so when I realized, all of a sudden I look over, there's that pipe hanging out of the wall, because I'm not leaving now. I'm staying. And so now no matter what I do, it's a blow, because I'm staying. I just start swinging. Doesn't matter what direction I'm swinging in, because I'm staying, I'm landing blows.
Yeah.
And we're going to recover. And we did, and in fact, there were people that donated money to the repair of the building, and it was, we didn't even have to pay any out of pocket for putting the building back together. And people came to the church because they wanted to find out about this church that's a cult from America that somebody tried to burn down to the ground. And so all the things that the devil used to try to get me to leave actually became, like I said, weapons that, because now here are people coming in, and there were other newspapers wanting to come in and get a follow-up story, and then realizing that we're just a normal church. When I say normal, I mean that we believe in Jesus and we're saved, not there's not a cult thing. We don't have weird rituals or anything like that. Our liturgy of service is just like any other church. It's our commitment that's different.
Yeah.
And that came out. That came out as our commitment level. And that began to have a momentum as people started to see this church is different. But it was that moment of saying, I'm not leaving. That was all that needed to happen. Was that's I'm not leaving. To understand that was what was at stake, and that I won because I didn't leave. It doesn't matter all the other things that I had to deal with. It doesn't matter all the vexed feelings and all the anger and these my cursing the entire country, the United Kingdom as a whole. All the that was that's emotions. That was nothing. The thing was staying, and in staying, and the response of that was impact. We were able to make impact in Liverpool, and Liverpool became a place where there was a flag planted for God. And even though that's been contended for again and again and again, that foundation was laid, and that was what was important. And so when you learn how to live like that, and that taught me a lot, that period of time, that taught me a lot, because that moment of just, it's the devil, he wants me to leave, and understanding that, and it changed everything. And so it's not a trial anymore. The trial's over, because now I know what it's all about.
Yeah.
Now it's just about, swinging, and landing blows. So that's what I'm talking about. Is that when you learn how to live like that, then you may be overwhelmed by the circumstances of the moment, but if you can do that, like what I just described, then things will shrink into their proper perspective, and then you're not overwhelmed anymore because things shrink. So like I said, because once I saw that, so yeah, we don't have a building. Yeah, we don't have a good reputation, but I know that it's the devil. And I know God is with us, and I know that God has not abandoned Liverpool. That this is a fight for these people, not a fight against these people. That changed everything.
Yeah.
And so you have to be able to do that in life. You have to be able to see the big picture, and that is always the case. And that's why you can't allow yourself to have, attitudes and things like that and be all, I don't even know what adjective to use, but you just can't be, you have to have good character. You have to. It's important. That's the whole reason for discipline and all these things is you have to have good character behind it.
Yeah.
And so like this guy you're talking about, there are character factors that are involved in being able to maintain that level of success that it's very, very difficult to achieve on your own.
Yeah.
But you can in God. You can have that. You can achieve those kinds of levels of character. But again, like I said, because of the nature of the beast, you can't having great character become world famous and help a lot of people and lead a lot of people to Jesus. It's just, that's not the reality. The world is not, clamoring to be saved.
Yeah.
The world is clamoring to be selfish and successful
Yeah.
for self's sake, not for in general.
Very cool. Well, that's it for tonight. We'll be here again next week. More topics to come. I've actually got quite a few inspirations that I'm working on for these podcasts, but we really would appreciate you guys joining live and asking questions. If you have questions after the fact, throw them in the comment section. And the truth is, if your question sparks up another topic, we can talk about it and turn it into an actual podcast if it goes that far. But so don't hold back. Fill those in, and appreciate you guys joining tonight. And we'd love you guys to join us in person. Our midweek service every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. We start, and that is live stream, but it's also in person. And we encourage you to join our service in person. Come, be a part of it, and so we look forward to being able to meet you. If you're new to the podcast, we appreciate you joining, and we look forward to being here again next week.